Hey, this is Julie calling all executive directors, or if you are interested in operations, have operational challenges, gosh, who doesn't? We're all in this together. Erin and Aaron, Aaron Fish and Erin Thompson are on today's episode. They have created an online training. It's available on the Grow Your Occupancy online learning, which is available through our website, and there will be links connected to this podcast. It is called the EDs Playbook. It is step by step, walks through kind of how to successfully lead a building, both from the tactical and the leadership, the culture perspective, the influencer, as they say. So it's dual, it's comprehensive, focuses on all areas. Gosh, we can never stop learning and growing. I hope you enjoy this podcast with two very lovely people who have a wealth of knowledge and are very kind people I enjoy talking with. I'm glad to call colleagues Erin Thompson and Aaron Fish. Please like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. Thanks so much for listening. Really, really appreciate it. This webinar is brought to you by SalesMail, the #1 personalized video app for senior living.
Built on a powerful ROI and an unmatched customer experience, SalesMail's App Store ratings tell the only story you need to know. Generating higher click-through and conversion rates, SalesMail is a video app of choice for sales and marketing pros everywhere. Day after day, SalesMail users leverage video to build brand loyalty, create human connection, quickly establish trust, stand out from competitors, and get desired results faster.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. I'm Julie Podewitz, and I am excited to welcome a dynamic duo to this show. I've got Erin Fish and Erin Thompson with me today. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure of, affectionately known as, I'm sure I'm not the first one, as the Aarons.
Yes.
Erin and Aaron. Okay, well, I know I've got lots of questions for you both, but just quickly, if you both kind of introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about your company.
Okay, I am Erin Thompson. I'm the founder of Aspire for More with Erin, where I coach senior living leaders and new leaders, and really any leader who wants to own their story and create the future that they want. I'm also the podcast host of the Aspire for More with Erin podcast and co-founder of the mentoring company with my partner, Erin Fish.
Yeah, and I'm Aaron Fish, founder and CEO of Trestle Hospitality Concepts. We do community experience consulting. So anything that touches a resident, we support that. Podcast host for Tips from Trestle, where we talk about community experience, and the mentoring company, we partner with Erin, as she mentioned, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
I am excited. I'm excited. So the mentoring company, this is a recently formed entity with the two of you. Tell us a little bit about the mentoring company.
Our goal with the mentoring company is to support leaders in that first 3 years. I mean, really support in that first year, because the first 18 months is where the biggest struggle is. And our goal is, we know that operators want to support their leaders in a positive way, but they can't always do it in a scalable way. And so now we have opportunities like this course, the Executive Director's Playbook, and a mentoring group coaching cohort or accelerator that allows coaching to scale. It's not just about operations and the to-dos and the task lists. It's about understanding the big picture and how communication and transitions and more communication is really the focus that can help turn the needle around quickly. I think the hardest part about being a new executive director is not knowing what you don't know. And we can infuse a lot of knowledge with over 40 years of experience into a first year executive director, whether it's with this course or a leadership accelerator. And so they can start focusing on things that move the needle immediately. Why not take the pain of learning away and give them knowledge where they're not looking and learning and then having to do everything all over again because it was the wrong way?
Oh, it's a good segue. You mentioned a course. Maybe Erin,
Yes.
you can tell
Yeah.
us a little more about that.
No, for sure. It's called the new Executive Director's Playbook, Creating a Community Culture for Impact. And the goal behind creating the course was we looked at what we've seen for executive director onboarding, training, leadership development. And there was a lot of here's the systems in your community. This is how you do the day to day. This is what you need to manage. And then sometimes you would find communities or operators who would do kind of generic leadership training, but there was nothing really focused on leadership impact in a senior living operation. And so when Erin and I started thinking about the course and how we were going to develop it, we really just looked back to our experience being put in that executive director's chair. And that's what we really kind of looked at in developing this was what would we have wanted to get that first 60, 90, 120 days that would have helped us be better on having a better handle on leading a community, not just trying to make sure that it operates day to day.
Well, for those of you listening, this is an incredible course. I'm going to talk more about the challenges that you've seen through your time as an executive director and obviously your time now at supporting senior living operations and the business as a whole. I know I work a lot with executive directors. This course is available on the Grow Your Occupancy online learning platform. There will be a link down below or attached in the comments, and you can jump on www.growyouroccupancy.com and look on in the resources, and the library is there as well. I highly, highly recommend this course. I know I've never been a full-time executive director, and I want to talk about challenges, but one of the things I have experienced since I've been on site in hundreds of communities is stepping in. So I have had to step in for a week, step in for a couple of weeks, and it's, you mentioned Erin Fish that, yeah, people are maybe given a manual and maybe there's some how-tos and how to walk through. That would be great as a start. I don't think all EDs even have that. Whereas not a dusty, huge 9,000 page, but like department by department, the KPIs and the expectations would be really helpful. And it's necessary, like a playbook. So and then you're talking about layering, right? You're talking about layering onto that, like you talked in our conversation previous about task versus experience oriented. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, tasks versus impact, right?
Impact. Okay.
Yeah, like you said, right? A lot of times you get the how-to manuals for the CRM and like Yardi or your accounting software, and you get really proficient in doing that. But that's going to keep the doors open, like the lights on, right? What you're really wanting to do is it's about creating the right culture. And if you don't understand how to connect with the right stakeholders, if you don't understand how all the departments interact, if you don't understand the basics of how to read the data coming from all of the different softwares you're using, it becomes really hard to create that right experience for the resident, for the staff, for the corporate, for ownership. So that's kind of where we looked at this course, and it's got all those pieces that kind of lay out, this is the starting point. If you know these things, you can build on that and have some really solid success in creating a good community culture.
Erin, Erin Thompson? What are some of the most common challenges you see, you yourself face, but that you continue to see executive directors facing?
I think the biggest challenge today And even it was a challenge that I faced as an executive director, especially a new one, is that we think that people are supposed to do what we tell them to do. And that is very much a control-based or a management-based leadership style. But today's workforce, they want to be influenced. They're going to see you and they're going to do what they see you do. And so we have to have this mindset. That's why knowing impact is so important. We get so frustrated when people aren't doing what we ask them to do. But are we giving them the reason why? Are we communicating enough with them? Are we getting frustrated and we don't even know that they didn't even get the message? That we just expect them to know what to do because we're so busy, we don't have the opportunity to pour into them. And I think the biggest effort that we can make for new leaders is to understand that we have a role and we can influence people to want more for their life, to see the impact they make with the work that they do just by us pouring into them. Did you see what just happened there? Look what you did. And all of a sudden, more actions like this happen because we're praising the outcome. So I think that managers, leaders, because we're so busy, we just expect people to do what they're supposed to do without us really understanding and communicating with them the way they need to hear it, the way they need to see it, and do our words really model our actions. And then if they see us picking up trash or if they see us helping somebody go to the bathroom and we explain why this was important to them or what this action does, then they will do more of it. If we can get them on the tours, get a caregiver to introduce himself to a tour, then we understand, oh, you are significant to this process. Your name is important. I'm telling them why you are such an asset to this community. I have now just influenced the tour, the prospect, and I have influenced the caregiver at the same time. Influence is the leadership skill that leaders need, not control-based techniques, not management-based techniques. And that takes growth on the leader's part. That takes a lot of awareness, self-awareness, and understanding that 2000 leadership management principles, the 2010s, those don't necessarily work today. Today is all about influence. And when you walk down the hall, you are a social media snippet for that day. Are you saying something to them in that 30 seconds that's going to add value to them? Or are you taking away value from them in that 30 seconds that they see you in the hall? If you can live that life, if you can understand that process, you can turn things around very, very quickly.
So are you saying that, are you saying right that in your experience, your own personal one, that you have felt that it was more top down? And you would have liked to have more greater ownership. My challenge is, I didn't even let you answer the question, but is that I hear over and over and over again, and did, on the operating side, our executive directors are the CEOs of our business. They're the CEOs of the business, yet we fail to actually empower them to be the CEOs of their business. It's top down, it's do this, it's do that. Same on the regional level. We don't have them take ownership for the fail. We don't have them take ownership for the win. And I think maybe that's in alignment with maybe that top down, okay, do this, and there's some of that certainly in regard to the expectations, but if you want someone to be an influencer in your words, then that's you need to be an influencer.
Yes. Yeah. To be a person of influence, you have to own it. Now, look, if you're in there, that's a double-edged sword. I owned my community. Every community, I felt like it was mine. And so with ownership comes a bit of, well, this is the way that I do it. You know what I mean? Like there can be a power struggle there. I've certainly felt that. When we mentor people, we mentor people to go from overwhelm to ownership to organizational impact. If the executive director does not feel ownership of that community, there is not going to be organizational impact. If they are not empowered to empower others, we're not going to see a very quick turnaround of a community. I think the leader needs to own it. And I think what prevents them from owning it is not feeling empowered to do so, having to get approval for all these things, small things, medium-sized things, big things. Of course, CapEx, you have to get approval. There are things that you have to go for. But if I can build my culture and I know how to build my culture and I know what meetings to do to build my culture, and as Erin said, I know what stakeholders want from me, being the home office, being the state regulatory agencies, being families and associates and residents, then I can give to them what they need and I can be trusted to run my community.
Yeah. And just to add to your comment about the CEO of the community, Julie, that was having been on both sides, like having lived in the corporate office as a senior executive who was pushing things down and having been an executive director trying to deal with those things. You can instill a lot of fear and negativity in that relationship by doing the pushing down and that control, like you mentioned. The really great leaders want to be empowered. They want to be given, here are the way we do things. Here's how you can have the most impact. Here's where our goals are. Now go meet our goals. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of anxiousness at that corporate level where operators think, well, we missed a number or we've missed these numbers. And then the ownership is telling us we got to hit these numbers. And there's so many pressures going back and forth that there's just not enough communication directly with the communities to make clear what we're all working towards. And I think it's that understanding that we've got to give those leaders control a little bit to be able to make an impact. That's why we drive them away. I think they're really good leaders.
We have to trust. We have to build the trust.
Provide the benchmark and the framework. I mean, every company has expectations and you
Yes.
need expectations, and here are the
Yes.
expectations. These are the desired outcomes of each department and overall in the business. I mean, saying you need to hit NOI is certainly not coaching. It's like
No.
saying you need to grow your occupancy or you need to have 100%
Yeah.
satisfaction scores, but some how-tos. And that's the framework from which to then build and build becoming that influencer in your words and taking ownership. And
Yeah.
I've seen on both sides, I see we don't hold accountability to the positive, and then we don't, the occupancy and NOI, it's just slipping, and or turnover is high, and we're like, why are we not holding EDs accountable for this? It On the flip side, so the good stuff, that can slip through the cracks too. But that's
Yeah.
the ownership
And
is
and
things.
that bubbles up to the regional director level too, right? Because a lot of times the executive directors that somehow are able to manage through the pushing things down get promoted. And so then in their mindset, there's only one way to do it. Whereas the really good executive directors need to kind of be given some reign to do it their way and meet those goals, meet those KPIs. Like, here's the goals. They are set. Nobody's disagreeing with that, but get there, right? Here's your time frame. Here's your expectations. Now go do it. And I think a lot of times that regional director level is just as much in need of understanding tasks versus impact when they manage down as well.
That's a good, interesting point. It's an interesting
Mhm.
point. And in our whirlwind of a day, in a week, in a month, rush. I mean, raise your hand if you're not guilty of just. I'm going to use this really specific example. I was on a call over the weekend on a coaching call, and the sales director actually called me. She was so upset. She's very diligent, very conscientious. She had a tour over the weekend. She knew all about the prospect. The prospect was extremely overwhelmed, cried during the visit, etc. This company does a post-tour survey, and this woman completed it. It came back 3 stars, 3 out of 5 stars. And instead of calling the ED and saying, "Oh, we got this survey. I see it's 3 out of 5 stars. Any insights here?" She started with, what happened? What did you do on the tour that caused her to do? I mean, really, and it was, well, didn't you do X, Y? And she felt accused And I
Yeah.
said, wait, I'm going to stop because we're learning, practicing open-ended questions and
Mhm.
engaging rather than did you, are you? I said, how'd that make you feel? She said, I feel like she's blaming me.
Mhm.
When and I just, it's a small example, but it's huge. And there's no malintent on the regional. She saw 3 stars. Oh, what'd you do? Did you do
Mhm.
that right? So it's like, instead of that open engagement opportunity, it was oh, you must have done something wrong. And
Yeah.
that
So my thought to that is all those conversations happened on a Saturday.
it's absolute, in this case, it
Right.
was, she called me on
Yeah.
a Sunday, which was fine, but yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
I
she was
mean,
so upset if she didn't
yeah.
have me to talk to.
Right.
And I'm not saying she would have, but I mean, she's just really very good. And no, it's not yeah, that happened on a Saturday.
There's a lot wrapped up into that scenario, right? I mean, number one, senior living is full of emotions, full of emotions. And so the way that the person feels whenever they're creating that survey, if they are feeling depressed, nothing is going to be a 4 or a 5 star because I'm crying, I'm having to move my loved one in, and I just feel so awful. And yeah, they were the best that it could be. So it was a 3, right? I felt supported. So it was a 3. At that point, the mindset of that family member could not potentially reach a 4 or a 5.
And it's
But,
absolutely
we don't
100%.
have, we don't have control over that. Number two, we have to keep our good talent and coming at them from a blaming perspective. Blaming, when people start blaming, they're feeling out of control. So for me, it looks as if somebody's feeling overwhelmed, and all of a sudden, as a regional director, that's going to be on me. So I'm going to act emotionally. I'm going to make a phone call and I'm going to be like, what did you do wrong? And all of a sudden, now somebody's on the defensive and she's feeling really good about it because she really helped this prospect move through the process, and she didn't feel like she did anything wrong. There was no self-awareness, potentially no self-regulation, because all of a sudden I'm feeling like I'm fixing to get a call on a Saturday, and now I'm going to have to answer this question. And you see how the trickle down of the negative control-based leadership is.
Yeah.
Whereas if she would have asked the appropriate open-ended questions, all of a sudden we could influence the situation in a positive way. Or if we could understand that it's an emotionally charged moment, and we have to allow our prospects to be where they are emotionally in the moment. And hopefully we can have another tour and do another tour follow up. I mean, there's
Yes.
so many things wrapped up in there, and we
Yeah.
should not be ruining precious time away from work, especially as a sales director or executive director, to create negative energy.
Agree.
Yeah. It,
Let's turn real quickly and I know, Erin, you've got, don't mean to cut you off there, but the, the course, I do want, and I'd like you to maybe give me some examples, and maybe, Erin, that's what you were doing,
yeah.
but can you talk a little bit about what's covered, or the content for those people who are either EDs, need support, thinking about making it a career growth, wanting to learn?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was going to segue into the course itself, right? We come from this mindset when we built it. We have a foundation called Grow and Lead. It's kind of our 8 points on how leadership should be done, how we can develop leaders in senior living. And when we looked at the course, we've looked at it from this idea of you're in a pressure cooker as a leader in senior living. So what are the things that we can put in this course that can really help make the most impact, right? What do you really need to have a handle on to free up your time? What's the 80-20 rule, right? Like, how do you do that to really have that leadership impact? So we looked at, there are 5 chapters in the course. We talk about the key stakeholders that you have to manage both up and down. We talk about the basic functions of all the departments and how they need to interact with each other. We have a chapter on financial literacy. One of the things that Erin and I talked about is so many times executive directors see the numbers and they can speak to or try to speak to subjectively, but they don't have the objective reasonings or understanding how to read a financial report, how to do a financial discovery call, those kinds of things. Erin has a chapter where she goes in depth on how to be most effective with the meetings and the communication that you have in your community. And then our last chapter is all about just kind of wrapping it all together and really understanding the impact you can have as a leader. And so it really, again, goes to, this is supposed to be a part of an onboarding process. You know, we envision it as you learn your systems, and then this course is can be a part of that and come alongside that. So then you can start to see where the value is. You know, we did a little bit of research around retention and what happens and the cost of all of this in senior living. And what we found is, in general, a course like the new EDs Playbook can help you save and return over cost 20 to 30% in time, in money. You know, you can have an impact on the long-term ROI of your community because you're getting this additional training, this additional support. And so it can have a significant impact on the success of a leader and how quickly they can get up to speed.
Everyone's going to take something away. Everyone, you know, as unique as we are as individuals in regard to growth and learning and the practical, the culture. What is, if someone could, as an executive director for their professional development, based on some of the gaps that you see, some of the common, maybe greatest areas of opportunity, what would that be for each one of you? Like, you would like them to take away what, even in this course and in their, you know, professional growth as an executive director?
I think that there are two things. If I'm a new executive director, and if you're listening to this, or there are two things that an executive director can do, and that is to really, really leverage communication, the meetings. You leverage them. I talk about 8 of them. You leverage them to meet every need you have. If you want more freedom, if you want more confidence, if you want to build integrity in your leadership, it is what you say in those meetings and how you connect the dots. Number 2 is transitions. You know, obviously Grow Your Occupancy is focused on sales. The sales process is from the moment that they call to the moment they walk out the door. And yes, the salesperson is responsible for the front end, but the nurse and the executive director are pretty much responsible for the back end. And in these meetings, when you leverage communication, you are talking about each transition. You have a family member who's walking through really hard transitions of a family, or of a resident who's going to the hospital, who's in rehab, who's, you know, potentially passing away, who's physically coming in to move stuff out. How can we leverage our team to be there and add support? Because we talk a lot about when people first walk in the door and call, but it's when they last walk out that's really, really important. And so I talk about that a lot, because friends and family referrals long term are going to be affected by how residents and their families feel when they leave for the last time. And so you can use communication, your meetings, those 8 meetings, to really, really affect and pre-frame people when they first move in. And that's important. You tie in impact with your to-dos, with your responsibilities, and how you have changed somebody's life. When you think about it, when you speak to the potential in the room, the potential rises. We focus a lot on the 80% of people who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, but here's this other 20% that actually drives the impact. If we can teach leaders how to talk to those, everything is influenced in a positive way. And that's what I believe we talk about in this course. Obviously, it may need a little additional coaching with that, but I am setting the foundational principles to that within the 8 important meetings, and the power of presence and understanding what your key stakeholders want.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's a great segue, because for me, I would kind of sum it up as, I'm all about what's the experience, right? I talk about resident experience all the time. You know, what are we doing to support that? But I think as a leader, and this course really focuses on this, is how do we curate that stakeholder experience, whether it's an employee, a resident, someone from the corporate office, and it's through culture, right? And so when we first started developing this course, it came to us, this is a culture-based thing, and it's not about creating a sales culture. It's about creating a culture that's easy to sell. And when you do that with your team and your residents and your prospects and everyone involved, that's where the rubber meets the road, and you're going to have significant success with all of the metrics that you need to hit.
Erin Fish, Erin Thompson. The Erins. Next up is a singing duo or some type of performance duo. Like, I just finished listening or watching A Complete Unknown, right? So you could be maybe like a folk duo. Thank you both so much for being on and for sharing your expertise. I so appreciate the both of you and everything that you do and your passion to help those who work in senior living and professionals, friends, family, team members, everyone you impact. If you are interested in learning more about this course, it's tremendous and very, very excited to have it on the Grow Your Occupancy online learning library. There is, like I said, a link in the comments if you're listening to this or watching it, there's a link. Certainly you can go to the website on the Grow Your Occupancy website and find it there. Again, Erin and Aaron, thank you. And thanks all of you for listening to this episode and meeting us all the way to the end. I hope you both enjoy the rest of your day. And as we record this, it's spring. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your spring and have a spectacular summer. Let us know what you think of the course, please. I know the Erins and I are very, very interested in your feedback and your input as they build out the second one.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Julie.
Yes,
My
thank
pleasure.
you.
Bye.
This webinar is brought to you by SalesMail, the #1 personalized video app for senior living.
Built on a powerful ROI and an unmatched customer experience, SalesMail's App Store ratings tell the only story you need to know. Generating higher click-through and conversion rates, SalesMail is a video app of choice for sales and marketing pros everywhere. Day after day, SalesMail users leverage video to build brand loyalty, create human connection, quickly establish trust, stand out from competitors, and get desired results faster.